I'm Russ Kickle, and on this episode of American Reef, we've got a reef keeping tool that every reef keeper will want, every reef keeper will use, and it's dirt cheap to make. Stay tuned for this episode of American Reef. So what is this new and exciting tool, right? Well, ultimately, it's a pre-primed siphon tube. And what does that mean? Basically, flexible tubing, right, that has water in it that will hold the water when you're not using it. And how does it work? Well, ultimately, you have flexible tubing here, rigid tubing here, and they come apart, right? And there's actually water inside here. So to actually get your siphon started, you'll put your finger over that tube, shove that in your tank, put that in your bucket, and it'll start siphon when you're done. You basically, again, put your finger over top of the tube, allowing that water to stay in it. Take that rigid tube, put it back, and then you store it for the next time you want to use it. And then the next time you want to take water out of the tank, for example, you just unpop it and do it again. So it's really quick. Now the uses for this thing are really cool. In my particular case, I have a bare bottom tank. And every now and then you'll have little sand particles or dust particles that will gather, and I'll want to suck them out. And before, it used to take probably 15 minutes or something like that. You know, you get a hose, you unravel it, or you get one of the Python things that you run over to your utility tub, right? Turn the water, go back, and all this other kind of stuff. Basically, you know, now it just takes a minute for me to get that sand out, right? And what's really cool is when you think about it, okay, there's sand there, but there's also things that kind of drop into the overflow or into your skimmer or into your sump that you'll want to clean out. And that's, again, where this rigid tube comes into play. Like, so let's just take your overflow, right? Your overflow now, you know, rather than go and trying to put a flexible tube like this down there, which is kind of bendy, etc., these rigid tubes stay right into a certain shape, so you can straighten it out, go in the back, do your business, right, and then, oh, let's get that sand underneath my rocks, right? You can bend it, right? So you bend it to get underneath your rock work. You can do all kind of things like that with this rigid tube. Now keep in mind, when you cut this rigid tube, make sure it's long enough to meet your needs, meaning if you've got an overflow that you want to put this, you know, and clean the bottom out, and the fact that maybe it's 24 inches deep, well, make sure this is at 24 inches to 30 inches, right, before cutting it and splicing it in. Again, on this tube itself, it's relatively simple. I got mine from Bulk Reef Supply, right? This is the rigid tube, which is half-inch rigid tube. They've been selling this stuff for decades for their GFO reactors, etc. When you look at it, what makes it work is half-inch on the outside, and then you get the half-inch flexible vinyl, and ultimately it'll just go in like that, preventing any leakage from happening, as well as an easy on and off kind of system. As he says, as he's trying to pull it off. Either way, you get the idea there. After you use it for a while, and actually when it's wet, it'll slide in a lot easier. You know, if, for example, you want to get fancy with it and you don't want to use your finger as your on and off to keep the water in the tube, get yourself a valve, right? Again, $5, it'll go on your rigid tube, and then from there, you can kind of go at it that way. If you don't feel comfortable, using scissors, you want a clean cut, you have these, again, tube cutters, roughly $5. The tubing itself, this vinyl tubing, 6 foot, again, less than $5. This rigid tubing is probably the most expensive piece, and it's only expensive because the amount that you need, meaning that you probably only need 2 or 3 feet of this, and it's at 90 cents a foot or something like that. But they may have a minimum, like in my particular case, I think it was like 30 foot was the shortest piece that I could get here. So it cost a little bit more. But again, when you break it down to the per foot costs, it's pennies, right? Especially in this hobby when we're used to spending so much money. And at the end of the day, it'll save just tons and tons of times, because you'll find out when you have that 5-gallon bucket and that pre-primed kind of siphon, there's all kind of like just general uses. Blowing your rock work out, for example, you can easily kind of combine both of these methods, right? Or if you have just a nano tank, right, and you can't afford like the automatic water change units. Again, it's really simple, right? You can drop 2, 3, 4 gallons, relatively easy, and it just makes it, again, it takes all of the inconvenience out of that model. So again, I think it's one of those tools that every reef keeper should have. Not sure why it hasn't been thought of till now, because I couldn't find it. And maybe it is. If you know of a solution that's out there, send it over my way. To make it yourself, like I said, I got this stuff from Bulk Reef Supply. Why? Because they're good, honest guys that deserve my business. And, rather give it to them versus, one of these big box kind of hardware stores, etc. That said, though, if you want to do that, you can go that route there, because I'm sure they have this at your Lowe's, your Home Depots, your Menards, all those sort of things. Again, cost-wise, we know it's under $10. And to that being said, if you have any questions on how to do this, right, feel free to send me an email at americanreef@me.com. Or if you can't do it, right, fine, I'll make you one up, whatever. It's just relatively simple and easy to do and to ship. So to that point, again, the pre-primed siphon tube, right, is what we will call this thing. And, if you're looking for pieces and parts, get it at Bulk Reef Supply, or, Premium Aquatics also has it. And for your other kind of reef keeping needs, remember, if you want livestock, get it at Top Shelf Aquatics, because those guys, bar none, are the best in the business. And, again, speaking of the best, Tunzi, right? From just a hardware perspective, right? Pumps, skimmers, all that kind of stuff, right? Reactors. I believe they are the best in the business, and with their warranty, usually their warranties are like 3-year kind of thing. So again, it blows everybody else out of the water. So again, for your reef keeping needs, make sure you give my sponsors a chance to earn your business, because they are good guys who deserve that chance. Again, I'm Russ Kickle, and thanks for watching this episode of American Reef.